AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.aldis.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Alex Ermolaev. Alex is the Director of AI for Change Healthcare. Change Healthcare are one of the largest AI health tech companies in America, dealing in claim management, image processing, and connecting hospitals with insurance companies. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Great. Alex, if you could start by talking us through your background and how you got involved in technology and subsequently what led to your role as Director of AI at Change.
Yeah, it's actually interesting, but my original degree was in cybernetics, which is called AI right now, and that was more than 20 years ago. Over the years, I did quite a few different things within the technology industry. I was on a technical side, I was on a business side, in different software technology companies, including some of the large ones like Microsoft or NVIDIA in semiconductor space. And I always been working with software, developing new innovative solutions. And in the last 5 years, the AI made a very strong comeback. And I'm very excited to be part of AI now and working exclusively on AI applications for the last 5 years.
For people listening who are not familiar with Change Healthcare, who are Change? What do you guys do?
So Change Healthcare is one of the largest healthcare technology companies. We manage a huge amount of data, which is flowing between hospitals, insurance companies, individuals. And we have the largest medical claims clearinghouse. So every time you submit in claims, it goes through Change Healthcare. We also have is a number one and number two medical imaging business in the United States. So a lot of the hospitals, especially larger ones, use Change Healthcare software to manage medical imaging. We also provide a bunch of different solutions and services for hospitals, for individual physician practices, mostly in software and analytics type applications to enable the healthcare system to work more efficiently for everybody involved.
As the Director of AI, what does a typical work week look like for you? What are the big challenges that you're currently facing?
Yeah, so AI is relatively new for everybody, including for Change Healthcare. Our journey started about 4 years ago, and we have a largest amount of data of anybody in the United States healthcare system, which makes it easier to apply AI. But at the same time, we still spend a lot of effort, a lot of work trying to find where AI is applicable within the company. So a lot of work is going into evaluating individual projects. What is a good fit for AI, what's not, what is financially sound investment and what's not. In many cases, on one hand, AI is applicable everywhere. On the other hand, if you want to make project within a reasonable time frame, which can generate significant impact for the healthcare system, you need to be very careful which projects you go after. We also, so selecting projects is a big deal. We're managing a pretty large data science team, about 50 people right now. And then we'd also get engaged in external communication, trying to bring those projects that we have to markets and working with early adopters to make it into production.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. You mentioned there briefly the adoption of AI, particularly within Change, and it's been quite the journey over the past 4 years. So you guys have invested significantly in data science. Can you talk about some of the wins that you've seen during your time at Change, where the use of AI and large volume data has impacted whether it be patient healthcare or hospital performance?
Yes, we have several applications currently in the market. We have actually a pretty large pipeline of projects in different stages of development, but there are a few things we already announced publicly. One of them is claims lifecycle AI. It's a set of capabilities. The first one we announced is just the ability to predict the claim denial, which sounds like a very basic type thing, but within the United States healthcare system, there is $260 billion stuck somewhere every year waiting to get paid. So it's a relatively small, very compact AI application, even though it still requires a lot of data to train it, which solves a very specific problem, which just happens to be $260 billion for the United States healthcare system. And this is just the start. We also have used AI to do natural language understanding. For example, we're able to apply it to radiology reports or to ambulance runs. So every time the ambulance run, there is a report generated, and we're able to use AI to read those reports and accurately assess what's been done to a patient, and both the diagnostics and the procedure codes.
Yeah, some incredible projects, really exciting, and the impact that it can have both financially and in overall improvement of claims process and anything related to that is quite significant. When you look at the pipeline, some projects are obviously not for public knowledge as of yet, but overall, what excites you about working within AI in healthcare? Because you've had quite an interesting background, but to land now in a company where you have access to such significant volumes of data, working in an industry which is, primed for disruption for good. What are you most interested about seeing in the future within healthcare and AI?
Yeah, I think healthcare is a very interesting industry. In terms of the AI opportunities, this is the biggest opportunity for AI to make a difference. And there are several reasons. First is United States healthcare system is the largest industry in the country now, the largest by revenue, and soon is going to be the largest by research and development budget. And previous technologies had a limited impact on healthcare because most of the healthcare is actually not like, adding numbers, right? It's not about, quantities. It's more about more complex patterns. Some patterns that are very suitable for AI, but not very that compatible with traditional programming approaches. So healthcare is the biggest opportunity, and the opportunities are so profound. Sometimes you just can imagine the future being changed in a very dramatic way. And some of it is still research, a lot of it is still research, and some of it is in the practical and development. But if you look at some of the research that's coming up, you have people developing algorithms to predict certain diseases, in some cases years before those diseases become detectable using any other methods. For example, if you predict breast cancer 5 years earlier, do we even have a procedure to treat it, right? So AI is opening an opportunity which we actually will have to do a lot of work just to take advantage of that capability. Or if you can use AI to predict Alzheimer 6 years before it strikes, what would you do without it, right? It's like the challenges is not first is AI, and second is how do you restructure healthcare system, or how do you change the way we do business in order to take advantage of this capability and restructure the system around a new technology.
Yeah, I think it's exciting times, especially when you look at the potential that it can have to real life cases. But you talked towards the end of your statement there about the challenges in terms of the current industry structure. And one question I wanted to ask and get your opinion based on somebody who's working in this every day is, there's a lot of great innovation going on, but when will we see the the mass implementation of such advancements for the everyday individual, because we can get excited about the possibilities, and right now we're seeing it impact the business side of healthcare. But when can we have this part of our everyday life, and what are the main obstacles that you see in getting it to that point over the next decade?
Yeah, AI is going to be a long wave. So the adoption of AI technology will be done over time. There was an interesting Pricewaterhouse report a few months ago. The report is pretty kind of standard consulting report, but what they did is they took the courage to split all of the opportunities into short-term, medium-term, and long-term. A lot of the low-hanging fruit is actually like on the business side of healthcare, like you already mentioned. But in the medium term, that's where a lot of diagnostics comes. Within the medium term, which means like 3 to 7 years, we can see a lot of the diagnostic application being implemented in production. And longer term, after 7 years, we can probably see a lot more automation, not just on diagnostics, but complete healthcare, automation of complete healthcare processes, probably for more simple tasks, like diagnosing common flu or something like that. But that one would probably be longer term, so 7, 10 plus years. So I think we have a very exciting future, but it's not going to happen overnight. It will going to come in waves.
Here at Aldis, we want to make the hiring process easier for all. Whether you're an employer or an aspiring employee, we have the service for you. For full-time work, Aldis will partner with you to find the best person for the position. Using both our network and our rigorous qualification process, we ensure that only the best talent is shortlisted. We will manage the process and work with you to select our most suitable candidate for your organisation. We also offer excellent temp hiring services. At Aldus, we provide a great opportunity to help you and our candidate make the right choice. The contract period is one long interview for your full-time opening, and the extended experience with our consultant helps you make the best decision. Alldus International is here to quickly help you find the best AI candidate. Our experts stay in close contact with our consultants throughout the duration of the contract, ensuring they have everything they need to get the job done.
As people who work in this industry and we're promoting the positive impact of AI, what can we do to improve confidence and combat this, I suppose, negative view of the impact of AI, in particular around something as important to healthcare, to ensure that people trust the results and the recommendations? When you remove the human factor and it's now a computer algorithm recommending a course of action, there's an element of skepticism, and when people don't understand how an algorithm has produced a recommendation, it can lead to a bit of mistrust. So what can we do to help people understand it better, be more confident in it in order to receive the best treatment?
Well, I think algorithms are not going to replace doctors. Algorithms can do certain tasks. So all of the AI algorithms we have is what's called narrow AI, which can automate specific task, but without replacing everything else the doctors do. So, for example, for breast cancer detection, you can use AI to detect a lump which is not cancer yet, but precancerous, and you can do it years earlier, and therefore you can save a lot of lives. I think there is kind of several things. One is the name of AI, artificial intelligence, is a little bit unfortunate because there is both general AI and narrow AI. The technology we have today is narrow AI, and people sometimes confuse it with Terminator type robots and stuff like that.
Yes.
So for narrow AI, the technology we have, I think it's both on us to make sure that the algorithms work as well as they're supposed to. And the second part is on the public, try to understand what AI does and why is it better. And I think it's a big part of it's just education. And some of the recent surveys done shows that people don't necessarily oppose AIs, they just don't understand what it is. And I think as we do better job educating the public and explaining the technology we have, I think people will be a lot more comfortable with it.
I completely agree. And I think to your point, separating narrow AI to advanced AI is an important step. Want to change direction slightly in the conversation. You mentioned earlier the growth that Change Healthcare has had over the past few years, and even in your time since being there, you've seen significant growth both in data science and data engineering teams. So what I'd like to do is get for the people listening and help them understand how to stand out in an application process. Could you talk to us a little bit about the steps that your team took when growing, what you looked for in top level candidates, and how a candidate can elevate themselves in amongst a batch of many candidate applications?
The companies that I'm with actually went through a series of steps. Initially, just like everybody else, data science was just a couple of guys in some division and nobody knew what they were doing. But over time, the company decided to make a strategic decision to invest in AI significantly. And that's CEO of the company and the board of directors. So it's not a small step, it's a very significant executive commitment. And we went from 2 people to 10 people in 2017 to 50 people 2018, and we'll probably be closer to 70 or 80 by the end of this year. So it's kind of a process, and there's a point at which the executive team needs to make a decision whether it's time for it to invest in AI. In case of Change Healthcare, the decision was based on the amount of data we have, and the thought is if we have all this data, we should be the ones succeeding. But different companies make this decision in different points in their journey. And what you see right now is a lot of the largest corporations making big investments in AI, and the other companies are kind of still thinking about it. So when Change Healthcare started investing in AI, initially there was a couple of data scientists which were pretty much trying to do everything by themselves. So the goal is to form a cross-functional team where data science, data engineers, software engineers, and subject matter experts are working together on solving specific customer problems.
Excellent. Well, listen, Alex, this has been an absolute pleasure. Some really exciting things coming in the world of health tech. We'll be sure to watch what Change Healthcare are doing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
AI in Action is brought to you by Aldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Aldus offer an exec search program. Aldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Aldus advantage. Become a member of the Aldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Aldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Aldus member and get the Aldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.aldus.com. That's www.aldus.com. Aldus International, empowering through AI.